What does the future hold for America? Have you ever pondered upon this question? As we stand on the threshold of tomorrow, it's worth taking a moment to consider the potential future scenarios for our great nation. The importance of this contemplation cannot be overstated. The future, after all, is a culmination of the choices we make today. Now, it's not always the sunniest of possibilities that we need to consider. Sometimes, it's the storm clouds on the horizon that demand our attention. And that's what we're here to talk about today. 3 different ways America could face rapid failure. These are not predictions, mind you, but possibilities. Shadows we need to acknowledge if we are to step into the light. The first of these is economic collapse. It's an uncomfortable topic indeed, but one that we must confront head-on. The economy is the lifeblood of any nation, and ours is no exception. A sudden and severe economic downturn could have far-reaching implications for every American, disrupting lives and shaking the very foundations of our society. Next comes the threat of natural disasters, climate change, earthquakes, hurricanes, wildfires, the list is long. While we cannot prevent these entirely, understanding their potential impact and preparing ourselves accordingly is crucial. Lastly, we look at the specter of war. A conflict, whether it's on our soil or affecting our interests abroad, could change the face of America in ways we can hardly imagine. It's a grim thought, but one we cannot afford to ignore. These are the 3 potential paths to rapid failure for America: economic collapse, natural disasters, and war. It's a sobering thought, but remember, recognizing the shadows is the first step towards chasing the darkness away. Now, let us delve deeper into these 3 methods of failure, starting with economic collapse. Imagine a scenario where the American economy collapses. What would be the consequences? Let's delve into this chilling prospect. An economic collapse is not a spontaneous event. It's like a house of cards, where one card's displacement can bring the whole structure tumbling down. In the case of the American economy, several factors could trigger such a catastrophic event. One potential cause is a stock market crash. These crashes occur when panic selling leads to a rapid drop in stock prices, leading to a significant loss of paper wealth. History has taught us that these crashes can be devastating. Take, for instance, the Great Depression in the 1930s, or the more recent Great Recession of 2008. In both cases, the stock market crash was a catalyst that plunged the nation into a prolonged period of economic hardship. Another potential trigger for an economic collapse could be hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is when the prices of goods and services in a country increase at an extremely high and typically accelerating rate. When a nation's currency loses its purchasing power, it can quickly lead to a complete breakdown in the economy. Just think about Zimbabwe in the early 2000s or Venezuela more recently. In both cases, hyperinflation led to an economic collapse, resulting in severe poverty and social unrest. A major financial crisis could also lead to an economic collapse. This could be due to a banking crisis, where a lack of trust leads to a run on the banks, or a debt crisis, where the country is unable to pay back its debts. The fallout from such a crisis can have far-reaching consequences. Unemployment rates would skyrocket, businesses would close, and the economy would grind to a halt. Now let's consider the repercussions of an economic collapse. Sudden unemployment would be one of the immediate effects. Without jobs, people can't earn money to pay for their basic needs, let alone luxuries. This would lead to a significant increase in poverty rates. Alongside poverty, an economic collapse would bring about a rise in crime rates. As people struggle to survive, some might resort to desperate measures. This could lead to an increase in theft, robbery, and other forms of criminal activity. Moreover, the collapse of the economy could lead to social unrest. As people lose faith in the government and the system that failed them, protests might erupt, leading to civil disobedience and even violent clashes. Such a scenario was witnessed during the Great Depression, when people took to the streets demanding relief from the government. Additionally, an economic collapse could affect the country's standing in the global arena. The United States, being a major player in the global economy, would send shockwaves through international markets, potentially triggering a global economic crisis. Furthermore, the collapse of the economy could lead to a decline in public services. With less tax revenue, the government would have fewer resources to maintain infrastructure, provide healthcare, or ensure public safety. This could further exacerbate the suffering of the American people. In conclusion, an economic collapse would be a disaster of epic proportions. It would not only devastate the American economy, but also lead to widespread unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. The ripple effects would be felt across the globe, potentially leading to a global economic downturn. Economic collapse is a frightening possibility, but unfortunately, it's not the only way America could face rapid failure. As we continue our exploration, we will discuss other potential scenarios in which America could face rapid failure. Stay tuned for our discussion on natural disasters and war. Now consider another scenario, a major natural disaster striking the heart of America. The rumble of an earthquake, the roar of a hurricane, the ferocity of a wildfire, or the wrath of a tornado. These are not mere figments of our imagination, but potential realities that could change the course of our nation in the blink of an eye. Natural disasters are a part of the Earth's cycle. They're as old as time itself. But in recent years, we've witnessed an escalation in their severity and frequency. A part of this, scientists say, could be attributed to climate change. Now, climate change isn't just a buzzword thrown around by environmentalists. It's a reality that's affecting our weather patterns, sea levels, and ecosystems. When the Earth's temperature rises, it can trigger a domino effect on our environment. Melting polar ice caps lead to rising sea levels, threatening coastal cities. Warmer temperatures can intensify droughts and heat waves, fueling devastating wildfires. Changes in weather patterns can lead to more frequent and severe hurricanes, causing untold destruction. Now, imagine one of these extreme events hitting a major city, or better yet, several of them simultaneously. The immediate aftermath would be a loss of life and destruction of infrastructure on a scale we've seldom seen. Homes, businesses, schools, hospitals, power plants, roads, bridges, all could be wiped off the map in an instant. Entire communities could be displaced, with people losing everything they've worked so hard to build. But the damage doesn't stop there. The ripple effects of a major natural disaster are far-reaching. With infrastructure destroyed, essential services would grind to a halt. Power outages could last for weeks, if not months. Clean water could become a scarce commodity. Finally, let's consider the most terrifying scenario of all: war. A specter that has haunted humanity since time immemorial. War is an ever-present threat, a dark cloud looming on the horizon of our collective future. It's a grim subject, but one we must confront if we hope to understand the potential threats to our great nation. What are the seeds of war? They're often sown in the fertile soil of international tensions, disputes over resources, or ideological differences. In our interconnected world, these conflicts can quickly escalate, drawing in nations from all corners of the globe. International tensions can be like a powder keg, just waiting for a spark. Consider the delicate balance of power that exists among the world's superpowers. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and we could find ourselves in a conflict of unthinkable proportions. We've seen it happen before in the world wars of the 20th century, and the threat remains today. Conflicts over resources, too, can be a catalyst for war. As our planet's resources dwindle and our population continues to grow, nations may be driven to desperate measures. The fight for oil, water, or arable land could ignite a conflict that engulfs the world. And then there are ideological differences. From the Crusades to the Cold War, history is littered with examples of wars sparked by clashing beliefs and values. In an age of increasing polarization, these ideological divides could easily lead to conflict. The repercussions of war are manifold and devastating. The most immediate and heart-wrenching is the loss of human life. In the blink of an eye, millions of lives could be extinguished, leaving behind a trail of grief and sorrow. Families torn apart, children orphaned, communities devastated. The human cost of war is immeasurable. Beyond the loss of life, there's the destruction of infrastructure. Cities reduced to rubble, roads and bridges destroyed, power grids disrupted. The physical scars of war can take decades, if not centuries, to heal. These ruins serve as a sobering reminder of the destructive power of conflict. Then there's the economic damage. War is a costly endeavor, draining the coffers of nations and leaving economies in ruins. The cost of military operations, the destruction of infrastructure, the loss of productive workforce. All these factors can lead to an economic downturn that could take generations to recover from. In the aftermath of war, nations are often left with a shattered economy, a decimated population, and a ruined infrastructure. The social fabric is torn, trust is eroded, and the path to recovery is long and arduous. It's a scenario that could lead to rapid failure for any nation, including our own. But it's not all doom and gloom. By understanding these potential causes and repercussions, we can work towards prevention. Diplomacy, cooperation, and mutual understanding can help diffuse tensions, resolve conflicts, and steer us away from the path of war. It's a challenging task, but one that we must undertake for the sake of our future. War, like economic collapse and natural disasters, could lead to rapid failure for America. But remember, knowledge is power. By understanding these threats, we can prepare for them, mitigate their impact, and hopefully prevent them altogether. It's a daunting task, but together we can ensure a brighter future for our nation. We've discussed 3 potential methods that could lead to America's rapid failure: economic collapse, natural disaster, and war. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. We began our journey by exploring the devastating effects of an economic collapse. The stock market crash, the devaluation of the dollar, and the skyrocketing unemployment rates that could send our nation spiraling into chaos. The collapse of the economy could lead to widespread poverty and despair, a reality that no one wants to face. But by understanding the potential for this situation and taking steps now to bolster our personal finances, we can better prepare ourselves for such a scenario. Next, we ventured into the realm of natural disasters. Mother Nature's fury is unpredictable and can strike at any time. We saw how hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, and other natural disasters could wreak havoc on our infrastructure, disrupt our supply chains, and displace millions of Americans. But by investing in sustainable infrastructure, creating disaster response plans, and fostering resilient communities, we can mitigate the effects of these potential disasters. Then, we delved into the grim reality of war. The devastating loss of human life, the destruction of cities, the long-lasting effects on our culture and society. War is a horror that we all hope to avoid. Yet, by promoting diplomacy, strengthening our alliances, and advocating for peace, we can work towards preventing such a catastrophe. While it's easy to get lost in the doom and gloom of these scenarios, it's crucial to remember why we're discussing them in the first place. These are not inevitable outcomes, but possibilities that we as a nation need to understand and prepare for. They serve as reminders of the importance of vigilance, preparedness, and resilience. By acknowledging these potential threats, we can take steps to safeguard our future. Whether it's through personal financial planning, community resilience initiatives, or advocating for peace and diplomacy, there are actions we can take to ensure our nation's survival and prosperity. These scenarios might be frightening to contemplate, but fear is not the goal here. Awareness is. It's about understanding the potential threats we face and using that knowledge to make informed decisions and take proactive steps. So, what can we do? We can educate ourselves and others, we can plan and prepare, we can advocate for change, we can strive for a future where these threats are less likely to become realities. A future where America continues to thrive, not despite these challenges, but because we've faced them head-on. While contemplating these scenarios might be unsettling, it's better to consider them now, when we can still take steps to prevent or mitigate them, than to be caught unprepared.